Hello, welcome back to the Education System Ruby I can't even talk, Reboot channel. Oh, there's a gaff right there. Anyway, this is hopefully will be very quick. I just wanted to share a personal story. It literally just happened, and so that's why I'm making this video, just to kind of document it. But I think it's a perfect example, personally, of the difference in my mindset and how personal growth has plays a huge role in that. So I got to set the background a little bit. I am a churchgoer, so I'll just say I was at church today, and at the church I go to, I'm part of the praise orchestra, and we also do this thing where we do prelude music. There's people rotating through, and it was my turn to do the prelude. Now this is important because it requires me to kind of prep a little bit more. Number one is obviously I've got to practice the music I'm going to play. As a professional French horn player, I play arrangements of quality arrangements of hymns. Also, sometimes I'll just play classical music. And today I just chose to do classical music. And so I have these backing tracks, you can call them accompaniment tracks, piano tracks, if you will, that I send and get loaded. And we've had a lot of transition in our church. Anyway, not to get too bogged down in those details, but basically, I had to send that out ahead of time. I had to practice. I had to get up earlier than I normally do. I had to make sure I did my warm up fully. I had to get there early so I could warm up for real, but then we also rehearsed the music for the service, and then I had to play my prelude. And so there's a lot of moving parts. And if I'm being completely honest, on the days I'm doing a prelude, I'm always a little bit more stressed, which I think is understandable because I'm performing. But I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I don't want to play too much. I'm measuring all these different things, and the rehearsal leading up to it was stressful because it just seemed kind of disjunct, and it wasn't it wasn't as well thought out as I'd like. But again, these are all not trying to be judgmental. I'm just trying to lay out the mindset. And so again, as we went through, there was just stress, and I could feel it. And my hope was I would play really well. But finally, it got to me playing. So I'd sent two tracks. One was the Nocturno by Franz Strauss, if you know music at all. No worries if you don't, it's for horn and piano. And then actually something I wrote. So the practice track was something I composed. And the thing I composed had three movements. I did not communicate that. I made just assumptions. But anyway, so I played the Nocturno. It went really well. It's like, okay, great. And then we started the next one. And the first movement played, and the first movement's kind of exciting, and then it ended, and the person running the board, and I hadn't communicated this, was totally me, kind of was like, I don't know what to do, I'll turn it off. And I was waiting for the next thing, and so there was this dead time, and it was awkward, and it was just, it was one of those things where as a performer, I could feel the spotlight on me, and it felt awful. And so, okay, so now at this point, I think I've laid the foundation. So here's in the past, number one, I would have been embarrassed. I would have been frustrated, which I was. I mean, I was embarrassed, and there's no question. But it would have snowballed into anger underneath. I would have gone home and been bitter and pissed off and frustrated at the person. It would have seeped in. I would have thought about it for days. It just would have been a negative experience, and it would have been something that I would have held on to. And to be blunt, bitterness might have crept in, and so that's what would have happened before personal growth. Okay. And I'm sure we can all relate to that in some form or fashion. So what really happened though was, the bottom line is, of course I was unnerved by it, but I didn't have that visceral, anger thing. I was just like, you know what? It was kind of like, it's a moment in time. I'll fail forward. We all make mistakes. I wasn't clear about the fact, because I actually should have known to say, hey, this last track is a long one. It's got 3 different parts on it. Let it run. I didn't do that. And even then I could make excuses that, well, we didn't have time to go over it because our rehearsal went long. I mean, there's all these reasons I could have justified it. Okay. I could have, but again, because of the personal growth, because I'm, putting in such positive input into my brain on a daily basis. And I literally just reading things about, today, I mean, I did my reading before I went to church, And basically, it's like in the moment, I was able to check myself, check my emotions, and say, you know what? It's in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. Afterwards, I went up to the person and just, hey, don't worry about it. We all have this happen. I should have, and I just, because it's the truth. Like we hold on to things we shouldn't. And I'm the worst offender of this. But again, we can't teach what we don't know. We can't give what we don't know. We can't do what we don't know. I didn't know there was an alternative. I didn't know that if I put better input, if I was consistent with my reading, with just positive influence, right? There's this phrase, garbage in, garbage out, quality in, quality out. And I just wanted to make sure I documented this because to me, this showed huge growth. And I had to go through this, had to have this happen to realize what a huge shift in my mind and my mindset. But anyway, just to say, I just thought it was very powerful. What I would also like to say too, though, is to kind of connect this to this channel a little bit, is we live in a day and age that is so judgmental. We live in a day and age that really doesn't extend grace. And let's be very clear. We're all guilty of it, whether we're Christians, whether we're not, whether we're atheists, whatever, like agnostic, whether we're liberal or Democrat or Republican or conservative or anywhere in between. We're all guilty of this sense of judgment. Okay. But what happens is it's what we do after we realize that we're being judgmental, right? Or after we realize that we're being a little narrow-minded or whatever. And my argument would be that when you focus on habits and success principles and personal growth, these moments are much more teachable. They're easier to step back in the moment and go, you know what? I got to pause, or, oh, this isn't who I want to be. But when we feed into our own, like, whatever we feel is most important, which is, again, this is kind of the mainstream, I'm going to use the term narrative, but just the idea of feelings first versus action oriented versus the idea of understanding and empathy. I don't know. I feel like there's a huge lesson here to be learned that we could all learn from. And that's why I'm sharing it, because I don't want to be the person who just does what everyone else would do. I want to be the person that looks in the mirror and says, you know what, you're living your values. You're a living example of what grace should look like, what success looks like. And I don't know, all of this ties into the fact that I think our priorities in the education system are misplaced. And because they're misplaced, let me be very clear when I say this. It's a noble profession. Like, teaching is one of the hardest things to do. And many of the things we try to do are noble, but they're misplaced. They think about how the moment feels versus what's the long-term consequence, or again, I should pause here because I'll go off in a huge rabbit hole, and that's not the point of this. The point is to focus on just this tangible moment in time that I experienced where my personal growth came out. And it allowed me to just look at my past and say, man, I really fell short. I really struggled. I really wasn't living the life and being the graceful person I wanted to be. And I can clearly see that because of my consistent effort over time, because of the input I put in, day out, I can handle situations like this with much more understanding and grace. Because the reality is, I realized right in that moment, even though I was frustrated, even though I felt embarrassed, even though I was like, oh, in the moment, I was like, you know, in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't matter, right? In the grand scheme of things, we all make mistakes. We're all human. And with everything that's going on in our world, okay, no matter what your opinion of anything is, we would all do better to just remember that we're all human beings who all have trauma. We all make mistakes. We all struggle to get by. We're all doing the best we can, right? We're all in some area of our life, we're all dealt a bad hand, right? Okay. We can nitpick about circumstances. We can find the exceptions to rules, which is what we tend to do. But in the end, we're all human beings. And if we just remember that, I think we would just do much better. We'd be better teachers. We'd be better mentors. We'd be better fathers. We'd be better partners, romantic partners. We'd just be better human beings. If we can just remember we're all human beings. Like, I don't know how that's so hard, but it has gotten misplaced in the the mainstream narrative of today. Anyway, sorry I got a little political there. I mean, it's always going to come out a little bit, but the reality is I just wanted to share. My heart just says I need to share this, because what I've learned, painfully so, is that we all can relate on some level. We all struggle with something. We all have experiences that are relatable, but we don't tend to want to share, especially in today's culture. And I'm daring greatly, as the book says. I just want to share this with people, and I want people to know that you're not alone, and that we're all struggling. But there are answers, there are solutions, there are ways of living your life in a better direction, in a way that would just be more fulfilling, I think. And if more of us chose that path, it's a simple path, but it's not easy. Man, it's hard. It is hard. But anyway, I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I hope everyone has a blessed day. I just needed to share. So have a great day. And again, remember, consistent effort over time equals success.